Welcome to another episode of the Inforunners. This is episode 3, and it's day 4 of the sale,
43.
I think? 43?
43.
Did I say
43.
43?
We're a bit further along. We're a bit further along than 3, I think. Yeah, and I'm Execute. How's everyone doing today?
And this is Hayes.
Wow, was that what we expected or what? Well, it was what I expected, and I know it's not what you wanted, Hayes. Definitely.
How could they?
We'll start off with your CCU guide, which is going to be really short today because, well, I'll let you
There's
take it
nothing.
away.
There's nothing. There's nothing worth mentioning for Consolidated Outlands, so skip that. And do you want to leave the more controversial stuff for last, and maybe we'll start with the ships?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they basically kind of just went over what ships they'd missed during the week. So they kind of updated us on the timeline for things like the Crucible. They showed us where they placed the 300 eyes, which they had talked about but missed, the Vanguard series and the Eclipse. And it was interesting to see some of the ships were further back than where I expected them to be. Like the Crucible is equal to the Pioneer, yet it's been out for a lot longer. The Eclipse, you can tell that's kind of been rushed through, well, not rushed, but it's ages, so it's, naturally a bit further along. And the 300 eyes and the Mustang are all still back in kind of development. Same with the Vanguard. So they've all kind of.
It's interesting that it sounds like they had designs for the Vanguard, but now they're reconsidering that. That is not what I expected it to be. I expected them to double down and just go with what they had. Maybe they really will address it. I'm not making any guarantees here. I think they're gonna just do whatever they want, but
it sounds at least like they're considering. Well, that means if you look at it, they've taken them back to before White Box. So I actually hope they are going to redo it. I really think that kind of was a bit of a nod to say, hey, we are taking it back to before. Because if you think about it, they just take the Vanguard and redo the whole body. So if it's gone back to before design, I think that actually means they are going to remodel it, which is...
They might rebalance it because, yeah, I agree with that. But like you look at the Harbinger, it has like 3 size 5 or 6 torpedoes, one of the two, it keeps changing. That is not very useful for such a big ship as a dedicated torpedo bomber. So maybe with the advent of the Eclipse, they've gone back and said, well, maybe we can put some torpedoes on the other side of the room.
Yeah, and it doesn't have that many either. It only had like 3, and you've got to admittedly think as a Vanguard at that size, it's probably only ever going to be used to take out other ships. And I even start to think, as you said, at that size of torpedo, like how effective is something like a Harbinger going to be against even something, let's just say, as a Constellation? And ironically, at their concept price, the Warden costs more than the Constellation. So it's kind of you start to think like that and go, yeah, well, what place does this really have? And then you start to look at things like the Gladiator, and then as soon as you go to the Retaliator, which is a similarly priced ship, it's eating it for breakfast. So, you start to wonder about the appeal. So I'm hoping that they can... How would you do it, though? Is it a physically, does it fire nukes? Because they're smaller... They'd have to be smaller missiles at this point, but with a larger payload.
Well, double the payload. They had 3 shitty torpedoes. You could stack it up to the ceiling and get another 3 in there. It's not that hard. It's just where torpedo gameplay has gone is nowhere near what they originally expected when they made that concept. So.
If I was thinking about it, you know how they've talked about a mine layer? I'd actually almost change it to a mine layer variant. I know that sounds weird because they've pitched a bomber, but you'd be able to get away with making the mines bigger and stuff. And currently, at the moment, we don't have a mine ship, but I'm pretty sure that it's on the cards now, especially with land claims coming today, because it'll allow you to put mines around for defense. So I just see... Do you see mines as a thing or not?
Depends what they do. If they're just explodey, maybe not. Maybe if they were interdiction mines, I could see that being a thing.
Yeah, I see them. I see a couple of different ones. So I see like heat seeker mines. I see kind of EMP mines.
Yeah.
I'd probably even see some form of like alarm mine. I know that sounds really weird, but what I mean by that is it's like a sensor mine that basically goes off and sends you a message to say, "Hey, someone's here that shouldn't be."
Yeah, you tripped a buoy, and then you have some heads up about activity.
Yeah, it'd be like a mine layer, buoy layer. Buoy layer. Oh, that doesn't roll off the tongue. Sorry, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, something of that nature. So, yeah, I don't know.
The Mustang rework is interesting though. A lot sleeker. I think they made the wings fold up. Is that because it grew and it's too big now, too fat, or what? Originally it was struts to hold it up, and now the landing gear is obsolete. And they said, "Oh, we're going to keep it in because it's iconic." But then they fold up the wings, and I'm like, it looks like a completely different craft if you land it and the wings are folded up.
I'm going to be really upfront and honest. I'm not a fan of the new Mustang at all. I think it's really lost its unique appeal, like as the craft that landed on its wings. And I get their idea behind it because it was going to be a lot harder to implement a fixed wing craft that can land on its wings rather than just having a suspension system that it can land on. But I think they could have probably put the wheels in the ends of the wings to still kind of keep that look and feel of the Mustang. And we even see today in Cessnas. Do you know what a Cessna is? Like the Cessna airplanes, they actually permanently have their back wheel on the back of the plane, so that actually doesn't go up into the plane. So they could have actually had fixed wheels on it, and it would have been really cool, and it would have looked really old school, and it would have also, excuse me, it would have sat with the aesthetic of Consolidated Outland, as in rustic and kind of a bit rugged. With the folding up of the wings and the new landing gear, the landing gear looks so much like the 300i series, it's just kind of a bit strange. And the folding up of the wings, after they literally just said, "Oh, we want to keep the wings because it's iconic," and then you make them fold, it was like,
why?
It's a bit... why? And sorry, you were going to say?
Bennett Gross says it all depends on how that beta interior looks. Look, I agree. I wish they'd showed us the interior for the beta to show how much the metrics have been screwed with, because that was more interesting to me, to see how those interiors were going to end up.
It is kind of a bit of a modular ship now, the way you described it. Like the front is the ship, and they just attach a different back to it. So I am kind of happy with the you climb in the cockpit analogy now. So I think that kind of was a good move. But I'm just disappointed it really lost what made it the Mustang. Do you get what I mean when I say what made it the Mustang? Like made it.
It's made it overhit. Its entire style guide has changed. It doesn't look like the old Mustang at all. It's been repurposed to something very, very different. I understand that.
Not just aesthetically. I think like the feeling of the Mustang was this simple craft that landed on its wings, and it now feels like a mini 300i. And I know that sounds kind of weird to say that.
It felt even closer to the Raven, if anything. The aesthetic.
Yeah, it does look a bit like a Raven,
futuristic sort of aesthetic.
That landing gear, it looks like they ripped it straight to the 300i.
Yeah.
And personally, like if you look at it this way, they've got folding wings. Why the hell couldn't they have had the wheels on the wings? Because then the landing gear would literally fold up. But yeah, I don't get it. It's not where I would have taken it. And I think it's a step backwards, not a step forwards. But that's my opinion. What's your opinion? Are you a bit blasé about it, or?
I'm worried about the interior, how they're going to end up, because the metrics were just really shit. Did they reduce what the interior was for the beta, so it has less function, or did they expand the actual size of the ship hull in order to fit what was actually already in there? That's my big concern.
Right, so
unfortunately, they didn't show that.
You're thinking more form over function. I guess what I'm talking about is the aesthetics. So, what do you think of it aesthetically though? Like the fact
sleeker.
That it's gone from.
I love the cockpit entry system. But I do believe it doesn't look or feel like the old Mustang.
Yeah, and that's my major concern. Eric79 is asking about wheels on the wing. My idea, Eric, that I was kind of talking about was instead of making it so it's got landing gear, is they could have made it like an old Cessna, which is an aeroplane, and they could have actually had wheels integrated into the wings, and that way it could still land on the wings and still kind of keep that old feel of the Mustang. At the moment, it's just kind of like a smaller version of the 300i as it currently sits.
They also had they have the Pioneer on sale. There was about 150-ish I saw there. 5-year insurance. Yep. I think I'm not so sure. If you really did miss it, but I think most people who wanted a Pioneer got it during the sale.
They had a whole week to get it, seriously.
Yeah.
And why would you turn around a month later and get it with just insurance instead of LTI? It's like...
And the thing is, this is the first time after a concept sale, they're selling the ship again in less than a month. Yeah,
and if they could have understood if they turned that 150 into CCU ones, but the fact that they're concept ones and they're without LTI, it's like, I should say war bund without LTI. Anyone that buys that, I feel really sorry for them in the long run.
I suppose that brings us on to the more controversial topic today. They're selling land claims. There's a $50 you can get a 4x4 kilometer, and for a whole $100 you get a 8x8, which is a bit like, who in marketing does the math on this? I mean, like, it's like either one is incredibly discounted or they don't know how to do math. Like, it's double the 4x4 versus 8. No, that's not how it works. It quadruples the area that you're claiming, and yet you're paying like a quarter for one compared. No, it's half. I guess it's half price for one and double for the other.
Yeah, well, literally, if you brought four of the first one, it would equal one of
$200.
The second ones. Yeah. So no. Four of the first one equals one of the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
8x8 is a 4x4. So fits into it 4 times.
And like you said, you got that one right. I couldn't bring myself to believe that they would sell this, because I knew they were sitting on a salt mine, and the miners were already with their pickaxes waiting to go, and I'm just like, you can't be serious. You're going to sell a gameplay function no one's going to be used for like 3 to 4 years before persistence will kick in. It's like here's my land claim beacon, and we put it as a hanger flare in the corner. It's worth a whole $100.
Get a title deed that just sits on the wall in
there.
It literally is the salt of the earth, pun intended. It's just... we've called this episode, by the way, Groundhog Day, because that's what we think it is. It's literally just a total hogging of, like, on the Disco Lando is like, oh, by the way, if you're worried about there's not enough land, one planet, and if everyone brought one, it would only be half the planet. And it's like, what the hell? Like, we don't want to hear that they're so easily and readily available, and you're charging $100 a pop.
The optics is bad because people can think what they want, and this leaves open people to think that it's a cash grab. There's going to be plenty of people who are angry about this. I mean, I don't really give a shit. They can sell land claims, but I can see the salt flowing over the hills, a mile away. I don't know why they set themselves up for this sort of stuff. It's weird. And I don't think they're going to sell many. It's cash only.
Yeah. If it had been credits, I could have probably seen a few moves.
Yeah.
But interesting thing there by Bennett Gross in chat, he said max of them 10 per account. So you really see someone spending $1,000 on land? And the other thing is, it's not as if you can claim it in advance and go, I want it on this a really cool patch. Like, if you could use the star map and claim it in advance, I could see people buying it. But like, just having it and like, if you buy 10 of them on the first day, you're gonna have to zoom in and claim them as soon as possible before other people do. I just don't.
We've got to do a buyer's guide, just a really short version here. Should you buy a UE land claim? And then there's cicadas in the background. Shh, 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 crickets. It's like,
yeah.
No one? No one? No one for the land claims? I guess we can't recommend you buy a land claim.
I'm interested to see how much salt comes from this actually over the next couple of days. I think you'll see a couple of YouTubers come out with videos. I'm interested to see what they say. I'm interested to see what comes up on the sub.
I want one.
I'm imagining.
Do you know Gaming with Jim? His YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I want him to do a land claim. Should you buy a land claim and just pull... Oh, beat the dead horse as far as he can take it with comedy.
Maybe we should get failure to report.
Oh, no. He'll spend 2 hours bitching and complaining and going on about it.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, nightmare. But
Yeah.
I guess is that all we've got for that? I mean, there's not much to talk about today.
The only other thing was I was kind of really surprised that Chris Roberts didn't let David Haddock speak. He said literally one sentence before he was cut off.
I was looking at that. I'm like, why is he even on the panel?
Yeah,
he probably had something to say, but then Chris Roberts just wouldn't. You know, he rambles on and he just continually. Yeah. Doesn't even realize there's other people in the room. You know.
Yeah. I would have liked to hear a bit of the backstory and stuff like that. I do. One thing I do like about the land claims is how they've actually added the way you claim is with that rod thing or the stick. I think that's kind of cool, a little interesting mechanic. It's not just you pick it off a board somewhere in a real estate agent place. You've actually got to go out there and do it. But buying them now, I can understand buying a ship. You actually get some kind of virtual thing to hold on to. But land, you'll never ever see that. And here's the thing. You're buying land, a claim, but you're not buying the land. So you have to still go find the land. And if you, say you buy 10 of them and you only ever find one good one, you just stuck with them.
Yeah. What if you only need one and you bought 10? Jay Black asks, selling land claims for real dollars has me very concerned. Land in the game is finite, I should say, and the gameplay opportunities attached to it make it such that heavy land buyers can considerably influence economic advantages in UAE space, with further decreases fair opportunity for smaller orgs who rely on UAE space in the first place. It's simply not the same thing as buying a Javelin, which is hard balanced by massive outfitting crew demands, the risk, thoughts, speculations. Look, planets are huge. They could buy out as much of the planet as they want, and there's going to be tons of more land everywhere else, and tons more planets to be able to buy on. And if someone wants to spend thousands of dollars buying up land, good on them. But right at the moment, it seems such a bad investment. I don't think there's going to be a problem to start with. At the same time, I can't see people jumping out and throwing their wallets and as much cash as they can to try and get as many land claims as possible. I have to wonder if this is even going to really sell. So,
yeah,
I'm not concerned.
I think the only people I can see buying them is whales, and they're super fanboys that just throw any money at COG. I'm sure they'll sell some. It's
not even tasty though. The whales aren't going to eat that.
No.
They go buy another hammerhead. It's like...
Yeah, even if you put it something next to the Hawk, at least I'm getting a physical ship. You're not really getting anything, and you're not locking anything down. It's basically you're buying it early, so on the first day, the only thing you're going to want to do is go out and get your land claim sorted, because if you don't, it just gives you that slight buffer to get in front of someone else. I think it's very pay to win in a way. You know what I mean? It gives you the ability to lock down something, but you've got to long-term invest in it, and it's
we don't know enough about this to call it pay to win to start with. It's just there's so much uncertainty about a mechanic that has not been fleshed out, and they want you to put money on it. This is worse than any other speculative ship investment ever. It's
what I mean by pay to win, just to clarify, is if you can go out on the first day and climb some really high-res mining nodes as an example, and you can lock down half a freaking side of one planet because you've got 10 of them, or a moon or something like that. it's going to really set you up economically in the long run, because you can then just flip those, like they mentioned flipping several times over.
Well, maybe you just want a plot of land and you just want to do a huge farm, and that's your economics. You don't even want to play in space. You want to do farm simulator.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's going to be useless.
I'm going to be honest, I think it's the most pay-to-win thing they've done, because it literally means you are paying money, and you're going to be able to push yourself forward in the land claim area, and it literally is going to be the type of thing where if you get in there on day one and do say you do buy 10 land claims, and you just turn around and flip them on a really close, say it's the next planet over from Earth or Terra or something like that, and it's a really popular planet because it's really close to a really big one, and you get some really good spots. You know, early on in the game they're worth nothing, but like a year into the game they might be worth millions. Yeah. And you can just you think think a bit more long term. You might be able, if you sit on those for 12 months after release, you might be able to turn them and flip them through.
I'm not a gambler. Like, for example,
no, I know you're not, but think of what other people are like.
It's like buying into cryptocurrency now and then thinking I'm going to be rich later. I'm not one of those people. I mine cryptocurrency, but I pay my bills with that. But I don't hold on to it, even though I would have earned 3 times as much in the last 7 months if I had. You know.
I know as well as you do, there are people that will. Yeah. There are people that will, and I can see. I think the only people that are going to pick this up is people that get the nefarious side of it. And I think it's probably the biggest thing they've left open to exploitation. And I'm thinking Banner Merchant Man, like going up in price, all that type of stuff. I think it's the biggest area available for exploitation they've ever done. And,
but I think if they're selling it now, they'll sell it next year. This is not going to be the only time they push this onto people. So I don't think there's much point in getting it now.
If we complained enough, I reckon they'd retract the entire thing. And I actually reckon that's what they need to do. I reckon they need to refund everyone's money that's brought one and never do it again.
They won't do that, though.
They won't do it because they don't learn from their mistakes, sadly. Anyway, next question.
Jay Black says, Chris Roberts has said the resources will be finite and persistent. If they start out with tons of claims, they can leverage that by monopolizing those resources. And the only way to counteract that is to become lawless. Hayes, I'm a bit puzzled by your skepticism. Yeah, only a few whales may overinvest it, but that doesn't really matter if they limit other people's opportunities. Look, systems are going to be expanding out well into release for years and years, and you'll have chances to claim in other UEE systems. The idea that the people first in is going to get the deal and everyone else is going to be locked out of that. I am incredibly skeptical about that, yes.
Yeah, well, what you need to look at is other previous MMOs, and the closer you are to a core world, the more expensive things become. Look at the real world, man. If you're in the city, the price of a land plot compared to the price of land in the rural area is drastic in size. It'll be exactly the same thing in the game, and to the point where, say that person buys an 8x8, they might be able to, and this is minimalistically, cut that back into 4 4x4s and sell each quarter for the original price that they brought if not more than what they paid for it. And I see that happening. I see someone going in and just buying really high resource nodes in a really close to it, like starting areas where people are not going to want to travel far, so they buy up all the really good resource nodes and screw everyone else over and flip it for a fortune. It's probably the biggest, as I said, once you think it through, I know you'll come to the same analogy as me. It's probably the most available for exploitation, because it's not going to be cheap to buy land, I don't reckon, on the first day. I don't reckon many people will be able to buy on the first day unless they bought a land claim. And so that person can literally just get in a ship like a terrapin and literally go around and go claim. And they can just sit on it for 12 months and then flip it for an utter fortune. It's like buying a collector's edition of any video game. It's the same thing. It's supply and demand. And as time goes by, those nodes or resource nodes that are really close to prime planets are only going to increase in value, as is the land itself. Even just land without resources will increase. And if the UAE is automatically turning up to defend it, It won't happen in Lawless Zones. I reckon you're correct in that. But you've got to think big picture, long term. Once you can do that, you'll get the same place on that.
But the thing is,
I think Jay Black's already there.
They're selling this as if it's some valuable converted sort of thing, and I'm just like, they haven't explained that. They haven't explained any of this. Like as a commodity, they've talked about how it works and the idea behind it, but it's too early for this stuff. This is something I could see them doing in a year or two.
It's something they should never have done, quite frankly. Yeah. And to be honest, the only way they could have made it kind of worse in a way is allow you to get the claims right now, because you can imagine the shit fest of fighting that would be going over the planets trying to find the best resource nodes right now before the game even begins. Like, they would sell all the really good ones would be gone before the game even started, and basically it's almost akin to that, except that on the first day it'll be a massive land grab. People will be going out to try and get all their land claims sorted. It's just a really, really bad idea, and I know they've said, yeah, there's going to be heaps of places to do it, but there's not going to be heaps of core worlds. There's going to be a handful of starting zones. So they've said there's probably going to be 5 to 10 starting planets that you start on, and then on top of that, like the closer they are to one of those starting locations, the more valuable they're going to be. You just got to look at any other MMO, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The ones I'm thinking about are Star Wars Galaxies. I'm thinking about, the building. I know it doesn't happen in World of Warcraft because everyone basically builds in the same place, but there are others that have done it previously, and it's been an utter shitfest. You'll see, man. You'll see what I'm talking about, and I hope they limit how many resource nodes you can claim or something like that, because if they don't share it around, it's just going to be, everyone's going to be pushed into lawless space.
I admit they decided to make a Pandora's box, and now it's sort of, it's not open yet, but it's there.
Look, I'll put it in a way I understand. In the real world, poor people do desperate things. So basically, it's going to push poor people out into the fringes where they have even less and less, and shit becomes more and more expensive, and they're going to get desperate. You're literally starting an economy that's going to turn poor people into pirates.
You need a pirates.
I don't think they've seen if this is the way they're going with the economy and making it as real world as possible, you're all instantly going to make a divide between people that own heaps of ships and people that don't. You'll see. I can't like take my brain and show you my vision, but once you start to connect all the dots, it's a scary way if we're having to pay for land in advance. And giving people the opportunity to land grab over other people this early is just a really bad idea.
No, I agree. Anyway. I agree with most of that. I'm not sure whether it will come to pass, but I do agree this early and offering these things. Yeah, it is fairly.
Okay, well, really quickly, look at human nature. If you have a land title, you are going to grab the best land you can for that title, no?
I guess.
And if you have 10 of them, you're going to grab 10 awesome land titles, no?
Yep, even if you don't, I just don't think there's going to be many people who are going to do that. It's like, you could be and sold a lemon, and you bought 10 lemons, and, everyone can easily access this in-game, and there was not that big of a difference between different landing areas too much, there was lots of good ones, so it didn't make a difference. You spent $1,000 on these amazing claims, and other people earned them in game in the first week, and there was more than enough to go around. It's
actually, that is the one way they could counter it, is just make it so that the resources are kind of evenly spread across the planet. But in real life, it's not like that. You tend to have one big cluster. They're all in. Like randomness in real life is actually clusters. It's not evenly spaced across the entire place. So if they make it evenly spaced across the entire place, yeah, that'll be fine. But if it is actually truly random and it's in clusters, and so you get next to nothing and your neighbor gets a huge one, all the big ones are going to get picked out real quickly. And they're going to be by the people who did the land claims, because I reckon it's going to take you at least a week, even with really big ships, to have enough money to get a land claim. They've said they're expensive, like $100. That's equivalent to buying a Gladius. So Maybe with an org, you can snatch up some big ones on the first day without land claims. But anyone else, all you're going to need is a terrapin and fly around to the nearest planet and grab all the good ones. But I'm hoping that's the one way they could dissipate it is make the resources more evenly spaced.
I'm skeptical until I can see something more clear. It's we will see where this fleshed out. I do agree that the optics are bad. It's far too early before they do this, and yeah.
Let's hope they do a Q&A on land claims, because I think they're going to get utterly smashed.
They're not going to. They already know where they
No, they won't.
No.
They know they're going to get smashed. I want to see an AMA on what were you thinking, but all right. Do you want to go on to the questions? The next question, because I know we're not going to be doing a very long one today. Because
I'll do a speed run through questions.
Yep.
Question: what about rights for travel through areas? Can't I drive or fly over claims, lock down a large thin strip across well-traveled area, and charge a toll? Look, if people can go onto your land and steal stuff, I think they're more than likely able to fly over it. It's more of when they actually start to steal from you, then perhaps you want a patrol to say, oh, wait a second, what are you doing? To be able to say a no-fly zone, maybe if you had defenses there to shoot them down if they did trespass, but otherwise I don't think that's the thing. Okay,
They've also stated too that it'll take time for the UE to turn up, so I think you'll safely be able to drive over people's places. Also, people will have base defenses, so it'll be up to you to defend it for a little bit before the UE arrive. Anyway, next question.
Zedfella asks, what's your thoughts on the Mustang Delta guy? Sometimes I just want to own a ship for its looks.
I'll let you comment on that one because I'll just start raging.
It's a starter ship. It's not got much firepower, and like in terms of firepower and capacity, Avenger, if you want a fighter and you want it for cheap like a starter ship, look at the Avenger first. And you know, if you are willing to pay a bit more, then the next jump up is the Gladius. And I don't think there's much competition here in that price range for actual fighter ships. So that's my thoughts.
I'll just make it short and sweet again. I think they killed the feeling of the Mustang. I'm not a fan of it anymore. I thought the flaw in it where it had to land on its wings was actually valid for being a starter ship. If you lost a wing, too bad, you can't land. That's fine. And even then, if you fly in really slowly now and land really slow, you'd still be able to land. You'd just be probably causing more damage. But it probably stuffed up their mechanics, as in you can't land because the ship won't land level or something. So it required more work on their end rather than redoing the landing gear. And unfortunately think it's killed the feeling.
Bennett Gross says base defense for non-UE space. UE space is well patrolled. It's supposed to be safe space. It's supposed to be safe space. But the thing is, people can steal. They've told about being able to hire patrols and, you know, get security on top of what normally the UEU would provide. So, you know, it is not, nothing is certain. Nothing is absolute.
Not that I have to do this every day, but when I call the cops, they don't show up instantly. They don't just like walk in and they're there. They take 10 to 15 minutes to get here, and I don't have to call them every week. But the last time
they'll probably stop people from squatting and mining long term, but people will be able to sneak in and get in a quick, you know, bit of mining and then get out before, you know, they can react. Yeah, it definitely.
Also, it'll depend how far out the planet is too. Like, I think if the planet's further away from a starbase, or just in, you know, if you've got the outer rim and then the core worlds in the middle area, it might take.
You do your land claim right next to the police station on a main, like on Earth or Terra, and then it's like as soon as they start mining, they. Yeah, what do you think you're doing? That's the one to get.
That might be even another one that points to the land claims. Yeah, grabbing all the land claims that are really close to police stations.
To law enforcement, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Next question.
Okay. Will you be able to steal land claims? I don't think so.
Maybe through a data runner. You may be able to steal it off a data runner, or possibly if you can get that stick thing, that chip that he was talking about. So if they're going back towards to
once they've claimed it,
get that data. If you steal that data, you'll be able to claim it before they will.
Yeah, before they claim it, but you can't steal it once they have claimed it.
Once it's claimed, I don't think so. Unless they do something really stupid like title deeds, and you can like hack their title deed or something stupid. But Man, can you imagine how mad you would be if they steal your title deed and then you get some kind of bulldozer turning up to knock your building down because you don't own the land? Like, nah, just nah, too much complexity there. I could understand stealing the before you claim it, but
Oh my god, Bennett Gross says there's a land claim Q&A. Oh, this would be interesting. I'm gonna read that later when I go to work. That would be fun.
Well, they probably want to. What? It's already out, is it? Is that them trying to kill
he
the
says
salt?
so. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Did you mean collect all the salt in one place?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Question.
Salt mining is a real thing.
Tech Mojo. Sort of an execute points on players' behavior. Do you think this will create more griefing towards players in org spaces due to finite resources?
That's
Has
what I'm worried
potential.
about.
Potential. It's not.
Yeah.
But then again, they're in safe patrolled space. They can't do too many bad things. Once they start murdering each other, I think then they start getting the crime rating in a highly patrolled area, and then they're screwed, right? I mean, they can make the dog poop on the lawn and like ruin their potatoes in the farm or something, and you can probably get away with it. But they probably can only prank each other so far.
Yeah. As long as it, like when you look at it now, as long as the resources, as I said, are kind of more spread out and they're not in these huge clumps, and once you've locked down a huge clump, you get the UAE to come in for pretty much next to free to police it for you, and it doesn't force newer players out to the fringes into a lawless space where, you know, bad things happen to bad people and it makes them bad. That's scientifically proven in real life too. If you get a kid and he's abused, he becomes an abuser. Or he or she becomes an abuser, and it'll be the same thing in a game. If you push someone out into the fringes and they hang out with criminals, they will become a criminal. And that's as long as they have enough resources and they don't let people groundhog, as in hog the resources and all that. I think it'll be okay.
Gaming with Jim just dropped a video on land claims. I've got to watch this after this. He didn't take long, did he?
No, that's good.
Oh,
all right,
good.
Well, shoot me a link and I'll watch that with you after this. All right, so next question.
Can't Shoot Me asks, how far away do you think you have to be from another claim to be able to claim? I think you can claim right on the border, not that I think you would, because, you know, there's at 8 kilometers is a huge buffer zone. Build anywhere, like, in the center of that 8 kilometers, you're probably not going to see much of the other guy. You know? It's a long distance.
I'm interested to how they're going to do it too. Like, does it mean it butts right up against it, or if you, like, can you leave spaces deliberately to like take up even more land to kind of block people from building in between you? So
I reckon you should be able to put a post box right on the end next to the other guy's post box, and you go, "Hey, neighbor."
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I would want to ask about this, and I think, yeah, there are a lot of ifs. Like Jack Black just asked, there's a lot of ifs to execute, but I agree. Yeah, there is a lot of ifs. There's a lot of things that could go really, really wrong.
I'm not going to predict problems until I can see them, if that makes sense. I'm not a pessimist or an optimist. I'm a realist. In other words, I've got to see it. Seeing is believing, or at least seeing that it could be there. Is me thinking that maybe it actually does exist. So I think it's too far out for me to start. I know what you're saying, that other games have had these problems before, but I think we've got to leave it to them to figure this out and see what they do.
I'll leave it with this. It just feels really greedy by CIG.
I think it's too soon. I really do. I think this is... if it's not greedy, the optics will look greedy to a large majority of people who do perceive it that way. So, like, I think
the fact that you really are buying nothing at the moment other than a claim. You're not actually even buying the land.
It's like you're buying a piece of paper to say that
you're buying a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's like
you're not actually even getting a virtual item. It's probably the worst thing they've ever done. And it really does look like a money grab. It's probably, I'm slightly disappointed, to say the least.
Okay, Landfear asks, I know you have discussed the Polaris a bit, but do you think there will be both a war bond and a non-war bond version? there is no non-war bond version. It's war bond or nothing. It's like, you want this shiny piece of paper for a land claim? Open your wallet. It's like, I think if they offered non-war bond versions, they would have cut 75% of the salt out of the community. Just right up there, because everyone would have the opportunity to keep one and melt and, you know, speculate on it. But the fact that they want the new money for this, the optics is horrible. I think that's more the problem. It's how they sold it. Because if they did it, you know, in non-war bond versions, non-limited, no one could complain. Because, you know, if they wanted to speculate on it until they knew more about it, they could. But they didn't offer that, did they?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. They still can't read the community's feels on things. It's kind of strange. I do think that's kind of one thing Disco Lando does well. He actually kind of does read a bit, but I don't think he's heard a lot in that.
He's got a tin air. He hears these things, but then chooses to completely tune out and ignore it, that it even exists. So like, it's not that he's not capable. He's not built to interact with the community in a very genuine way. So when there's a problem, he tunes out. You know, it's the wrong sort of I wouldn't call that community management. I'd say he's more PR because of that. Because if he was community management, he would react to those things and try to gauge or redirect them. But because he only does PR work, I wouldn't call him a true community manager.
No, I agree with that. That's exactly how I feel about him. Next question.
Question, I'm thinking about buying a land claim. Is it worth it so I can get some good land at launch day? Are you going to buy it in 4x4 or 8x8? Technically, I have a Pioneer from the first Pioneer sale, and I'm getting an 8x8 land claim already with that. So I'm sort of set up to have a land claim. I guess what comes out of the Q&A and what they tell us going on into this sale will depend a lot upon whether my opinion of land claims turns out to be more favorable, or my advice would be not to buy. So the advice at the moment is, you do not have to buy this today. Wait until you get the Q&A out, wait till we get a little bit more information and we can better predict where this is going, and then decide whether you want a land claim or you think that's not for you. Because it's too early.
Sale line, you're going to have to December the 4th anyway. All the sales seem to go through to at least to then, and then everything that was on concept seems to be going a little longer, so you might even get a week longer again.
That's right.
Hayes is right in that. If you were going to buy today, though, definitely buy the 8 over the 4, because you will get, if you do the math, that's literally 4 times the amount for only.
It's not a limited sale. You can choose to wait till the very last day of the sale. Wait for the Q&A and additional information, and give some good thought into whether this is for you or not. That's my advice.
But at the moment, there is like someone said before, there are a lot of ifs. We really need to get some of that answered, because there's a lot that could go really wrong here. And what I mean by wrong is, if you have money, you can kind of pay to win with it. So, yeah, don't jump in now. Kind of wait. But if they leave it how it is, yeah, man. Oh, we just don't know. Too much to know. We speculated. If you want to hear more, probably re-listen to what we stated earlier. Any more questions?
Tudor asks, I'm wondering if at some point we can fabricate outposts with alien architecture. I love roundish banner outposts with an organic feel. Perhaps a Xi'an design with magnetic steps and parts. Like, I don't see why. I mean, like, you go buy the Banu prefab bits and then, you know, 3D construct the rest. They could do add-on packs for cosmetics, so that, you know, you have the schematics to print out different architecture types to make your base look different, you know? Maybe different types of bases will have to be for more extreme environments, like snow, or like, you know, the different things. Who knows? But I think this is something we won't ever see till post-release, because that's just extra work for them and they need to focus on getting out the game.
You and I have speculated on our own time other ships too, like a ship that just delivers prefab buildings as well. So maybe they might do another building ship that's a Zion ship, or actually Banner would be really good because they already have mixed tech. So they might be able to build any or prefab any version of a building, not just the Pioneer sounds very human. You'd think lore-wise it would only build human buildings. So, yeah, it's a good idea though. I like it.
Grim Jim asks, how far do you think they will go with base building? Do you think the underground will be a possibility? Underwater, on the side of a mountain? Do you think it will have the freedom feel of Minecraft? I don't think it's ever going to be Minecraft, because that's not what this game is. But in the first iteration, which is just a homestead, flat land, that's it. Look, they may expand on that in future, but that's well past release. They're going to keep things simple because they need to.
Underwater is probably the only way I think they could probably go. The others make it a bit more complicated, especially because you need custom geometry to go into caves, and if you have to dig your own hole, that's all custom geometry. The hardest part about water is you actually have to tell it to exclude water when you're in that internal spot, and that's not super hard to do. But it's automatically got airlocks on it as well, so that's not hard either. So it's like being all space and water is kind of the same. I could see kind of having an underwater research lab possibly, but yeah, underground, no, I don't see that. I think most realistically is something Hayes and I've talked about, and that's probably customizable space stations, and that would be in the form of another ship.
I could see them getting ships floating too, so that'd be neat. They've actually talked about that. The whole D&E is landing in water because, you know, it can sort of take the load. Like in low G environments, they can do water landings. Yeah, so they haven't really got to water and oceans and waves yet, so give them some time on that.
As long as you've got enough clearance under the waterline, it'll be the same thing as a ship. Yeah, like if you crunch your land in a 2 foot of water, it's going to crunch the cargo. So yeah.
Okay, and Emilis, not a question, but he says the ship price thread seems to have been unstickied on Spectrum as well. Transparency taking a hit. They really go in this direction, aren't they?
So say it again. What was unlisted?
The ship
on
price
Spectrum?
thread seems to have been unstickied on Spectrum as well.
Oh well, you can still look it up on the wiki.
It sort of shows you that future concepts, they're not going to even try to tell the price until the sale.
Yeah, they said that, and I really didn't like that. That was one of the cool things. Like the community asked for that because they wanted to be able to have the money ready. Like, or as long as they tell us the sale, I'm not worried so much about the price. But it's really cool if they tell us in advance that the sale is coming. And even if they gave us, like said, this will be an expensive ship, this will be a cheap ship. So that way you know roughly how much money you need to have. And at this point, we know it's going to be under $2,500 because the most expensive ship is Javelin. But,
Black.
the ships that come out this...
Yeah. Oh, you want the next question?
Okay,
I was
just going to say the ships that have come out this week that were more expensive than we thought they were going to be, and it would have been nice to know how much they were going to cost in advance.
No, I'm not disputing that. It's less transparency is never good. Less warning is never good. J Black asks, sharp change of subject. Land claims are depressing. I agree. I'm trying to not muddy my feet and my hands too much in this. I'm just like, yeah, it's there, and I see that, but like, I think I'll wait a bit more and and see what happens with it, sort of thing. Wait and see type attitude. But anyway, Execute made a great point the other day about the Polaris as a quasi-carrier refueling station. What trio ships would you all select for a Polaris playing escort along a Hammerhead for an Endeavour convoy? First up, Terrapin. Absolutely a Terrapin. Scouting...
With his question, though, does he talk about fighters that can land on the Polaris?
No, he just says what trio of ships would you select for...
I would definitely add
to go with the Polaris. With the hangar.
The only thing I would... the Terrapin also can shoot ahead, but if the Terrapin would kind of go back a little bit for me, because if the Polaris has got really good scanning, you may not need it as a defensive, but if you were wanting that scouting ahead ability, yeah, the Terrapin works. But again, we don't know the scanning range quite yet of the Polaris.
It comes down to, like, when you move far enough ahead, you want to know what you're getting into before you get into it. It doesn't matter how far the scanning range in the Polaris is. Being able to set that terrapin 5-10 minutes ahead to scan the area just to see what's there, that's forward scouting. How far the scanning is on the Polaris is irrelevant, because by the time you get into range, what if you get into something with a longer range than that? You're screwed. You want to know the danger before you get there.
It
and that's what scouting is.
In the level of area that you're traveling in. Like if you're traveling in low sec, yeah, 100%. If you're traveling in space, like a relatively secure space, I don't think you need the terrapin as much as if you're in low sec. With having the Polaris, that is.
But then again, a Polaris and a Hammerhead, you're already not in low sec, are you? I mean, like, really? So, but yeah, the other ships I'd do would be fighters. I would take, something like a Banu Defender, a Saber, or a Super Hornet, and use them to support the two with regards to, like, interception of missiles, interception of bombers. They're useful.
And you and I were talking about this the other day too. We're pretty sure the Defender, when it folds up, can land in the Polaris too. It's probably got a smaller footprint than the Saber because it's bigger initially, but the way the arms fold up, it
doesn't take up much space.
It shortens it quite drastically. So yeah, I'd probably go a couple of Defenders and a Terrapin. Yeah. Next question.
Okay, just keep looking for questions.
There's one there by Bennett Gross that says, why a Terrapin for the capital ship with the best radar? Well, as
we explained that, but the idea is that well, what if you run into another Polaris? You want to know, the whole idea of scouting is knowing something is there before you actually get there. And just because you've got a huge range doesn't mean someone else doesn't have a huge range, and by the time they spot you, it's too late. You're already now in an encounter where they may try to intercept you. The whole point of scouting is knowing, oh shit, there's a Polaris and a Javelin or a whole bunch of Vandal up ahead. Maybe we need to redirect and reroute before they can even see us.
And the other part of the Terrapin, obviously, is it's really tanky and turtley, so it's kind of harder to kill, and even if you do lose it, you're only losing one person. So,
not to mention excellent scanning with minimal crew sort of commitment. 2 people in a Terrapin allows you to not take major resources away from the rest of your fleet.
Yep. It is that type of thing where you'd want 2 people in it too, because you want one person to fly and one people to scan quickly in and out. That's it type of thing. Just a FYI, I've probably got less than 5 minutes left here, so if you have any more questions, shoot in now. So
J Black asks, I'm not very familiar with the established EMP mechanics. Can they be used as part of purely defensive tactics as well?
Same Dyson isn't here, because EMP is really his thing. Hey Jack, I know you're in. Oh, I called you Jack Black, but J Black. If you're on here again, man, do you want to save that question to when Dyson is here? Because that is really his forte. We can answer it too.
There's no reason you can't use it defensively. If you are trying to get away, and you do have an EMP functionality, and someone's chasing you around, maybe you can EMP, and that gives you enough time to get out of the interdiction zone, and then quantum jump away. It's at the same time, there's more than just EMP generators. There's EMP missiles. And instead of trying to blow the guy out of the sky, an EMP missile is more, I'll disable him for a bit, which gives me that window of opportunity to perhaps get out of a situation that was very, very hairy and uncertain for you. Maybe you might have taken serious damage or died. So yeah, you can definitely use it to attempt to open a door to escape. I definitely see that as being a possibility.
Yeah, it'd be really. I can actually see that, like someone setting off an EMP just to get a cargo ship or whatever away. I actually even think that's. I know the Defender doesn't have one, but I think that's kind of how its defense is going to work here. Deal with me or deal with the Banu Defender, the Banu Merchantman kind of thing. But
as an interceptor, they supposedly had EMP missiles, so the idea that you disable whatever's attacking it long enough that your main ship can get away. Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Can't Shoot Me
next question.
Asks, Will you be able to attack land claims without UEE intervention, and will big orgs be able to create huge claims by placing a lot of land claims?
Short answer, yes and yes.
But at the same time, I don't think huge orgs are going to have like hundreds of land claims. At least not yet, unless things change.
Not in the first couple of days, but I reckon as time goes on, I can see an org taking out a fairly large section of a moon or something like that. I can see that. In fact, I'd love to see SCA written on a planet.
Boy.
Out of buildings.
Yeah, anyway, all grow some sort of like red flower or something, so you can see it from space.
Yeah, like a farming thing. It just says WTF from space. That'd be great. Yeah. Next question. We've only got 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Lee missed. Is there a mechanic for dropping a ship out of quantum in order to then attack it? Yes, it's called interdiction. They have talked about interdiction. They've done some design document. I'm not sure if they've done design documents, but we had a...
Said it would be like a net. So you'd set up a net, and when they fly through it, it'll disable.
It's sort of like if you know where someone is going before they go, you can set up a device that does a huge radius in an area, and the person then has a chance to be pulled out of quantum. And in order to spool up again to get out of that quantum, they have to get out of that area, that net, that sphere. And so in that time, they have a period where they can attack you while you're trying to get out of the radius and then leap back into quantum again. So they have talked about it. There is definitely going to be tools involved. If you want more information or are familiar with Eve, perhaps, it's very similar to how Eve does a quantum interdiction.
Ryland McPhee asks, since the merchantmen had to grow in size to accommodate their height, how do you see that changing the nature of the Defender? Not at all, because the banner's increased to fit the Defender, so why would the Defender change?
Oh, no, I think it changes the nature of the Defender in that it may be a companionship for the banner, because if you end up having the room to dock that, then that would be a very good ship to pair.
Also, like, the Defender is it maybe 6 meters tall when it's folded? I think even I kind of worked that out, or 5 meters or something. It's not that different from a Saber. It's kind of
smaller,
fairly flat ship as it is. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'd gladly take a little bit of cargo loss to gain the ability to put 1 or 2 defenders in the hold just for the defense. It's pretty cool. And it also frees up the pilots, if they're human, so to speak, to do extra tasks while they're on the ship. So you technically need less people to run the ship, if you know what I mean.
Well, Ryland McPhee says, wouldn't the Defender need to grow too? No, they white boxed that when they made the ship. They know the metrics are right. The Defender doesn't need to grow. You see, the Banner is an old, ancient concept from many, many years ago. That's why it has to be reworked. All the recent ships, they have the metrics right. And people say, ooh, the Polaris is going to grow when it goes... No. This is one of the newest concepts. They blocked that out completely when they made it. They already know the metrics work because they designed it that way. All new concept ships are designed first and then concepted. So they know that everything actually fits before they do it.
You kind of look at the Hammerhead, that they had a pretty good commercial video for that already. I think that ship's a lot further on than people realise.
Yeah,
like that was a fully textured, like it was probably a high poly model, but it was fully high textured model. Like they've got that really worked out and stuff.
Thankfully, they're designing ships first and then concepting sort of after they figured out what the design has to be and what the requirements need to be, as opposed before where it was art and then concept, and then they had to try and figure out how the hell they're going to fit all that concept and the idea into an actual ship. So, you know, they reversed the flow process of how a ship is put into design, which is good, because, you know, I wish they'd done that with more ships. They would have come out of far less problems if they got that process right from the start.
Ryland's asked another question that relates to his first questions. Wouldn't the Defender need to grow too? No, it doesn't need to grow because it hasn't been made yet. And they've already worked out, as we just stated.
I read out his question. We just answered it.
There we go then. All right, well, the last question there is by Bennett Grace. Do you want to read that? And that'll be the last one for today before we log off.
Yes. What are your guys' best idea for the new Drake ship we will be voting on? Bennett Gross.
We talked about this yesterday, didn't we?
We did.
I think it's going to be a salvaging ship.
I hope it is a salvaging ship.
So a mid-sized salvaging ship. What would be the other two ideas? I know we actually did go over 3 ideas, didn't we? But
smuggling,
I forgot what they were.
slaver.
Oh, and the meth lab.
Oh, meth lab. Yeah, you could do a drug lab. That might be bad.
But I still think the middle of the road or smallish salvaging ship would be the best thing.
I think I could see a 60-meter ship.
Heavily, I think. Yeah,
some sort of industry. That'd be neat.
Yeah, you know, they won't surrender type of thing. So you've got to blow them out of the water. So the way you get a bit of money is you salvage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that about wraps us up for now. So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. What's tomorrow's sale?
Tomorrow is RSI.
So that'll be slightly more interesting.
I think it's been the most well. Everyone was expecting this one to be interesting, but it's probably been, let's be honest, definitely the most controversial, but probably the least interesting, especially from a CNOU's perspective, because it's actually offered nothing new to those of us with credits at all. So,
well,
all right.
We don't forget, if you have any CCU questions, you should really go to our Discord. We can give a bit more advice from there on a one-to-one format. If you have any comments, make sure to put it on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, we'll catch you around.
Should we chuck a link to the Discord in very quickly before we leave?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good idea.
I'll do that.
Yeah, and I'm Execute, so we'll see you tomorrow once he's chucked that link in, and we'll see you then. I don't know what else to say. Hayes goes very quiet when he's thinking.
I can't find the thing.
Can you hear it?
I'll put the Discord link on the YouTube comment, the description thing.
I've got it. Hang on.
You've got it. All right.
I'll get it in about 5 seconds.
The Discord's good because you can comment on our videos or talk to us or like suggest ideas for episodes. And so
I'm going to send it to you because I just realized I don't have the chat open, but you do. So I'm going to send it to you. There you go. That's it there.
Copy. Link. Paste. There you go.
All right.
Catch you around. See you
Bye,
tomorrow.
Everyone.